So now we are doing a mix of models and theories and settlement geography. So topic is largely models and theories, and then we'll move on towards settlement. Question is, new Malthusian policies aimed at limiting family size have increased female feticide and infanticide and sex selective abortions in China and India. So first question, you should know what the terms mean. What do we mean by new Malthusian policies? Basically, these are policies that are aimed at controlling birth rates, policies which are aimed at reducing TFR, which are aimed at smaller size of families. Because Malthus ka primary goal kya tha? That we must have a smaller size of population. So a new Malthusian policy will talk about controlling family size. That's one. But ये objective तो हर theory का है. Even Marxian theory says ultimately population should be less. Ultimately we should have lesser number of growth. So idea that our birth rate and TFR should be less is more or less the objective of all the theories. So when I say new Malthusian theory का approach क्या है, what they believe is that all poverty, all resource limitations, say hunger issues, they can be solved if the size of population is less. Okay, so here it is. I am writing down. So what does the Malthusian approach tell us? The Malthusian approach says that population size is the root of all problems and the root of all poverty, and there is no solution to this, and the positive checks are inevitable. This is what the traditional classical Malthus theory will tell us. The size of population is the root of all problems. It is the root of all poverty. Our solutions nahi hai. And whatever solutions we have, like contraceptives, solutions like adultery, solutions like abstinence, all of these solutions, these are either vices or these are undoable. They are either sins. जो भी solutions हैं, वो sins हैं. They are not the good thing, not the virtues. The use of contraceptives, adultery, and abstinence. Abstinence is you're controlling your desires. One doable hai. Okay. So when I say new Malthusian theory, what is the new Malthusian approach? This also believes, ye say 1 hai, this is 2, and this is 3. New Malthusian says, yes, all population problems and all poverty is because of population size. All population problems, all poverty is because of population size. But what they are saying is, there are solutions. Control the numbers, and solutions are contraceptives, solutions are awareness, solutions includes propaganda, it is the government programs can be run. So the focus of new Malthusian theory is हमें population कम करना है. That is the approach. This is the approach. Now what theory is saying, it is this approach where the focus is on controlling the numbers that is responsible for the adverse sex ratio. It is responsible for high female infanticide, high female feticide. It is this approach. It is this approach. The approach क्या है? The approach that solving for population growth is responsible for the low sex ratio, is responsible for adverse sex ratio, and that is infanticide, female infanticide and female feticide. This is the idea of the question. अब बताओ, discuss करें आप इसको. And I'm saying discuss, what does it mean? So आप बताओ कि if this is true, अगर ये true है, how will the population data sex ratio data look like? To tell me in terms of data. अगर ये assertion सही है, yes, if we control numbers, the sex ratio will be poor. Yes, if we control numbers, we'll have more female, okay, infanticide. ये data से कैसे जानेंगे आप? There are two possibilities. Either this theory is right, the statement is right, or it is wrong. Data से कैसे जानेंगे आप? What will you correlate? You'll map the sex ratio with the growth rates. अगर ऐसे examples हैं where low growth rates means a lower sex ratio, lower TFR rates means lower sex ratio. I can say yes, आपने growth कमाया, okay, and your children are now lesser in the women. यही होगा ना आपका? अगर ये सही है, so we'll say yes, you're right. Okay, that the more I control the population size, the sex ratio is going adverse. और wrong कब होगा? When I find that the lower growth rate and the lower TFR, okay, has maybe higher and improving sex ratio. तब होगा ठीक. तो आपको इंडिया के डेटा में और चाइना के डेटा में ही ढूंढना है. Okay, what states this is true? When was this true? In what states this is true? And when was this true? यही है ना? Go back and check the question again. The question is saying the neo-Malthusian policies aimed at limiting family size. कि जब भी हम family के size को छोटा कर रहे हैं, with the neo-Malthusian policies, where the focus is that we have to reduce our growth rate, that we have to have smaller family size, and that has increased female infanticide. It has increased female feticide. और इसको China, India में discuss करें. So I'll start the answer by saying the neo-Malthusian theory means this. Neo-Malthusian theory का एक ही purpose है that we have to control our growth rates. We must control our birth rates. We must control our TFR rates. And now let's look for examples where controlling the birth rate and the death and the growth rate, if that has resulted in low sex ratio or not. आपको क्या लगता है ये कहां-कहां पर हुआ होगा? In which states you think this is positively correlated? Southern states में related है कि जहां-जहां पर growth rate कम है वहां पर sex ratio भी कम है. Yes, हरियाणा होगा ना. हरियाणा में growth rate is below national average. Haryana mein TFR is also around 2 and less than 2. And you find sex ratio 830, 840, broad range rakho. So yes, in some parts this looks right. In fact, the sex ratio of UP Bihar has actually declined faster, while the growth rate bhi decline ho raha hai. The only two states which have been above national average in terms of growth rate. Okay, India ka growth rate of 17% hai decadal. Bihar and UP have a growth rate of more than 20. Wahan par the sex ratio has declined. Okay, so यहाँ पर लग रहा है ये सही है. The Hindi belt, in the agrarian belt, okay, this looks right. But southern states में the low growth rate has also higher sex ratio. Tamil Nadu में, you talk in terms of Kerala, you talk in terms of Andhra Pradesh, the growth rates are much lesser national average. Decadal growth rate is about 13, 14, 15 के range में है. And the sex ratio is around 1000, around 990 and more. I hope you got the point relationship here. Okay. और फिर ये अब ये कहेंगे कि this is not a persistent trend every time. ये trend probably was more applicable in 1980s and 90s. Okay. But latest NFHS data tells us that TFR घटा है और हमारा sex ratio बढ़ा है. Are you aware of this last data? Like, although it's not census data, but the latest data tells us that this has actually improved. So maybe this new Malthusian approach to population, okay, led to lower sex ratio was probably right in 80s and 70s and 90s maybe. But lately, this pattern has now changed. Don't just start off why we have low sex ratio. वो बाद में आएगा. Okay, पहले आप establish तो करो क्या लगता है आपको सही है नहीं है और सही है तो क्यों सही है. यहां पर सही इसलिए है because here we have low education. यहाँ पर still have a society जो traditional है. यहाँ पर अभी भी very high son meta preference है. These are agricultural communities. और ये सही इसलिए है okay, because यहाँ पर you have got higher women empowerment. You have got more female literacy. You have got a more aggressive and a longer history of socialist population policies. तो reasons बाद में आएगा, पहले क्वेश्चन समझ तो लो क्या कहना चाह रहा है. इस क्वेश्चन में आई हैव नथिंग टू टीच यू. थोड़ी I'll teach you what is sex ratio. Why do we have low sex? हम तो नहीं पढ़ाएंगे ना आपको. I will teach you why this statement is right or wrong and tell me in terms of data, examples and regions of India. And you need not know all the data. Can you tell me broadly Punjab, Haryana में क्या sex ratio है? Can you tell me broadly the sex ratio in parts of UP and Bihar? Can you tell me broadly sex ratios of southern India? More than 820, 830, 850, around 870, 880, almost more than 900, 991. इसी में खेल जाओ ना आप लोग. You must know the India's decadal growth rate around 17 है percent. Okay, 17.64 or 67, whatever. Okay, so you should know these broad numbers. ठीक है, Soumya. Okay, so I will want you to use whatever data you have and then develop the answer. In recent times, ये change लग रहा है हमें that this probably is not right in recent times. Recent times, the child sex ratio भी बढ़ रहा है. In recent times, but oh yeah, it has to be confirmed by census, जो अभी हुआ नहीं है. ठीक है? So it is not about teaching the concept here. It's about teaching what does the question mean and how will you structure that answer in your writing. So if I'm structuring the answer, okay, I will start with the storyline. I'll start with what is a neo-Malthusian basis of population policies. Okay, maybe 2-3 lines. Batana isko. What is the neo-Malthusian basis of population policy? Essentially, this is all about control the birth rates. It is about control the TFR for solving any population and poverty problem. Okay, this is the neo-Malthusian approach. And the fact is, yes, this approach was followed in India. Okay, right from 1950s onwards. Okay, we have followed the approach of controlling the population. So much so, it was a coercive approach in the 1970s. It was a coercive approach. It was driven by aggressive targets. ये approach रहा है, ठीक है? ये आपका second कि this is what neo-Malthusian means, and that's what we have been doing. Then you will say that we must study the impact of neo-Malthusian policies and the co-relationship between growth rate and TFR vis-a-vis sex ratio. We must study the neo-Malthusian policies, the neo-Malthusian approach, and the co-relationship with growth rate, TFR versus the sex ratio. Okay. यहाँ पर third, so 2 lines here. Then the fourth one will be cases when reducing growth rate has been accompanied by reducing sex ratio, implying control of birth rate means increase in female feticide. Cases when decrease in the growth rate has accompanied by this. Okay, इसका best example होगा Punjab and Haryana. Okay, where the growth rate is below national average. National average 2011 census में is about 17% decadal growth rate, and the sex ratio in these areas is around 830 to 850 per 1,000 males. Okay, in Punjab, Haryana, the growth rate 11 census में it has been less than the national average. Okay, 17%. And these states also have a very low TFR. TFR now is 2 and less than 2. So this implies, yes, control in population, control in the birth rate has resulted in decline in sex ratio. फिर आप इसका reasons बता देना. What are the reasons for this? Okay. अच्छा, इसके साथ में आप ये भी कर सकते हैं. The same applies to even UP and Bihar. The same applies to even Rajasthan, Central Indian Belt. Okay. आपको exact data ना भी याद हो. You should know that all these areas, UP, Bihar में, the growth rate is approximately 20%. And the sex ratio of UP, Bihar is around 930, around 930, 920 इसके रेंज में है यूपी बिहार में. Okay, and these states also have declining. अब याद नहीं है नंबर, कोई बात नहीं. They also have declining child sex ratio. They also have declining child sex ratio. India का child sex ratio has fallen below 930, 930, 920, 919. It has fallen. Okay, so this tells us, yes, this is correct. In fact, from 1990, India has the case of vanishing women population, more than 90,000 lesser female population. This is one case over. Yes, it looks like this. Okay? The second case, ये fourth था, then whatever number 5. Cases where reducing TFR and growth rate has not necessarily reduced the sex ratio. So southern India states, like Kerala, we talk about Tamil Nadu, talk about Andhra Pradesh. यहाँ पर decadal growth rate almost less than 10%. The decadal growth rate is almost less than 10%. These states have a TFR of less than 1.9. They are lesser than replacement ratios. और यहाँ पर sex ratio is overall sex ratio is around 990 to 1000. Kerala में it is around 1030 and more. तो ये डेटा तो आपको पता होना चाहिए. Okay, you need not go by the answer alone. आप खोल के देखें. Appreciate that. So this means यहाँ पर लग रहा है कि no, the growth rate control does not always mean female feticide. यहाँ पर आप reasons बताओ फिर. Tell us what the reasons are. So women education, we have a consistent push of the socialist policies. These are more developed and they are less agrarian societies. Okay, overall literacy is more than 90%. So in these states, the role of son meta preference is relatively less. But यहाँ पे ये भी add कर सकते हो that with the rise of technology in sex determination, okay, the reasons is this. But how we can say that with the introduction of sex determination technology, okay, in the 1990s and also in the 21st century, the child sex ratio across states has declined. The child sex ratio across states, her state, even Kerala mein, has declined. Our 2011 census tells us no state has a positive child sex ratio. Is it okay, all of you? And then you can end and say, but now the trend seems changing for the entire country. Last two datas, NFHS data, 4 and 5 mein, the trends seem to be changing for the whole country. There is a consistent fall in TFR across the country. But there are sample surveys that tell us that the sex ratio has increased. Its reason can be threefold reason. One is overall awareness has improved. There's a very strong clamp down on sex determination tests and female and women, health conditions have improved. Okay. आपको दिखाना होगा in terms of 2-3 maps. So you could draw, okay, one map of India like this. So Rajasthan, so UP, so Bihar, okay, Central India, and you can say a higher growth rates compared to national average, and the sex ratio is low. Put some number here, put some number here. You can draw one more data, one more, okay. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, tell us the growth rate here, the TFR levels here, and the sex ratios here. Okay. Now, about China, we do not know too much of detail. Do we have any regional comparison there? अब China का generalize करो. Okay. That China, फिर एक paragraph में खत्म करो China का. Okay. China has one of the lowest growth rates. Okay. China का growth rate is almost 1.1 के range में है TFR, almost 1.1. They have got inverted pyramid, higher aging population, okay, and they have very strong son meta preference. The sex ratio of China is less than 900 per 1,000. So in China's case, it shows, okay, that Malthusian policies of coercive control, okay, is impacting is impacting the sex ratio. Round off around 900, 920, 930, okay, and you're on. Is it okay? So the conclusion here is that sex ratio in reality is not always a function of population control measures. There are other factors also. Out-migration, women education, the type of economy, okay, leniency in health governance. ठीक है? I hope you got the approach of the question now. So मुझे पढ़ाना थोड़ी है आपको concept क्या है. I must help you structure the answer. What does the question want and how do you answer it? Okay, try another question. Limits to growth not only promoted Malthus' idea, but also promoted the notion that planners could use systems analysis to compute a country's sustainable population size. Discuss. अब बताओ क्या meaning है sentence का and how do you answer this? So please don't explain what limits to growth is. ये question कुछ और पूछ रहा है. So इसका 3 part है. One is, what do we mean by limits to growth is promotion of Malthus' idea. The second part is, how is limits to growth, okay, is a systems analysis. And third part is how this approach, okay, can be a method of computing a country's sustainable population size. Malthus' idea was about that population is limited by land and food. Okay, limits to growth is, yes, population is limited by not just land and food, but also limited by fossil fuel, limited by pollution problems, limited by, okay, the problems associated with urbanization, congestion. Okay, the first point, that Malthus' idea was population is limited by, okay, food and land resources, but limits to growth is much more broad in concept. Okay, what limits size of population are agriculture, yes, okay, pollution controls, okay, the finite amount of energy resources controls, okay, fossil fuel indefinite nahi hai, and problems related to urbanization, crowding, even that can control population. Ye pehla point. Second point, just as Malthus' theory predicted collapse of population because of positive checks, limits to growth also predicts collapse of population because of various factors by 2100. ठीक है, इसको आप समझा के लिखेंगे आप. I hope you know the 4 factors related to your limits to growth. The 5 factors क्या हैं? Okay, the relationship between 5 elements क्या हैं? Size of population, okay, the food and agriculture land, then pollution, industrial production and fossil fuel reserves. लिख लो आप. The 5 interrelated parameters in the limits to growth study. Say population size, agriculture resource, food production and land. Number 3, fossil fuel, coal and oil. Us time it was coal. Then industrial production and urbanization. And the 5th parameter is pollution and the ability of earth to internalize it. Pollution and the ability of the earth to internalize pollution. ये 5 parameter हैं. Okay. Then you go on by saying that this is a systems approach. ये approach जो है, this is a systems approach. Systems approach के 3 parameters क्या होते हैं? It talks about, okay, more than, okay, 1 or 2 components that are interrelated. The relationship is not linear. It's a web. Any systems में there is a complex relationship. Okay. And third element of systems approach is that it is difficult to predict objectively, but there is a fair sense of what can be the triggers and what can be the broad consequences. Okay, or why we can't predict is because the relationship is dynamic and limits to growth is right. That's why they had to, the approach is systems approach, because they had to go for different computer simulations. They had to look at many variables, and what was most likely is the run 3 variable. I hope you have recalled this. Like run 3 tha, where they had checked the relationship. Run 3, RU and run 3. That was, okay, the most successful, accepted model. It was done by Forrester. The computer simulation was done by Forrester, Forrester, Forrester. Okay, so they use the systems approach in this. The third part is, now with this systems approach, we can have planning. So any planning ke, any good plan का क्या-क्या element होता है? Any good plan tries to identify all the related variables. A good plan can tell us the best case and worst case scenarios. Okay. A good plan can tell us what can be regulated for desirable consequences. It has been used for the concept of most viable population for Earth. So given the limits of ecosystems, given the resources, assuming some trends in technologies, it has been concluded that the most sustainable population for the Earth is around 4 to 5 billion. So our present population of 8 billion is far more than adequate. And you can add a sentence, population models of today are far more refined. Back in the 70s and 80s, many possibilities could not have been considered, but systems-based modeling can be used at arriving the best optimum population with respect to all variables of the Earth. So while I'm dictating the answer, my interest is, देखो, ये सवाल directly ऐसे नहीं पूछेगा. The whole idea is, can you think on an organized line or not? Not blindly आपने Malthus देखा और लिख दिया Malthus theory. You have seen limits to growth और वो पूरा लिख के आ गए. What you want is understand the question कि क्या पूछ रहा है and accordingly develop your answer. And I repeat, it's impossible that you can anticipate this question. आप कर ही नहीं सकते anticipate. So आप जो भी लिखोगे, remember, it is a challenge for everybody, not just you. अगर 1000 बच्चा दे रहा है, all 1000 of them are struggling on this question. So apply your imagination a bit more, think a bit more. Even if you write an average or below average answer, फिर भी answer will be better if you have thought through it. ठीक है? Okay. Try another question. Any growth that occurs towards a specific location is a result of discontinuous growth and location. Comment. Okay, so you probably have a very large complex of locations. ये एक location, ये एक location, ये एक location, ये एक location. All of these are locations. Okay. Many locations. अगर growth किसी एक location के तरफ होता है, let's imagine the growth is happening towards this location. Okay. So that means what? This area is attracting growth. It's attracting growth. It's attracting growth. Any growth that is towards a location, then this growth is bound to be discontinuous in terms of growth and location. Matlab, this growth cannot be uniform. This growth cannot be even across the entire space. Can you see which theory this one? ये क्या theory है? This is the cumulative causation theory. यही principle है, the concept of growth pole also, that growth by nature is unequal. Growth by nature is discontinuous. Growth cannot happen at all locations at the same time. Okay, growth will spread but not at the same rates. You must remember those sentences. And then you're on. See, one problem I have told some of you have met me, कि आपको ये सारा कुछ पता तो है, question देख के आपको recall नहीं हो रहा है. The only reason I can see is you have not memorized that enough to remember it. When I tell you, say, oh, yes, it looks like that. But आपको ये खुद याद आ जाना चाहिए. Moment ऐसे growth आंख के सामने scan होना चाहिए. The growth pole theory, the cumulative causation theory. We have the concept of backlash, backwash concept. All is accumulating. Okay, we have a Schumpeter's model. Growth is uneven. ये सारा terms आना चाहिए आपके मन में. So लिख लो 2-3 point and then develop it. Essentially, I am asking you explain the growth pole concept or explain the concept of cumulative causation with examples. उसको मैंने घुमा के एक और phrase लिखा हुआ है. So the growth is happening. So इसका opposite क्या होगा? The growth is not towards one location. Growth is spread out. Growth is to all locations. Growth is towards all regions. So yes, in that case, okay, it cannot be uneven. Then in that case, okay, it cannot be discontinuous. Okay? Right further, right? This statement is essentially the concept of Gunnar Myrdal's cumulative causation theory. Gunnar Myrdal's cumulative causation theory. This essentially is Francois Peru, and Baudelaire, growth pole concept and growth center concept. इसी आइडिया को एक और भी नाम बोलते हैं. This is the concept of Shabbir's. That growth is an uneven process. Growth is essentially an uneven process. Growth is never continuous. Growth is uneven. Growth is never continuous. Growth happens in jerks and spurts. Suddenly growth hoga. So you must explain, yes, if you have Gunnar Midal, this is also the backwash effect. Correct? It is the backwash effect. और फिर आप समझाएंगे. Okay. The first point here is that if growth is towards a specific location, it implies inequalities in growth. Now, still, according to Gunnar Midal, बताओ क्या बोलते हैं? Therefore, some reasons can be resource, can be historical. Some centers act as suction pumps. इसका example दीजिए please. So, महाराष्ट्र में मुंबई बताओ. Mumbai as a suction pump, it attracts. तो आप diagram बना के बताएंगे. In India, the 3-4 mega cities जो हैं, they're all examples of growth towards a location. They are examples of growth towards sports or the capitals. Okay. Therefore, there are inequalities. Okay. वैसे ही the growth in terms of sectors also. Okay. It can't be equal. The growth in terms of sectors also cannot be equal. Okay, so industrial growth is faster than agriculture growth. Lately, services sector growth has been faster than manufacturing growth, in India at least. Give examples, please. Next discussion will be why this happens. Why is growth discontinuous? इसका 3 reasons हैं. Because the channels of spread are not there or ill-developed. इसको हम बोलते हैं forward, backward linkages. The channels of growth spread are non-existent or ill-developed. That's one. Number 2, because not all centers and not all sectors have the multiplier effect. So they tend to accumulate. Multiplier effect. Third could be policies that do not facilitate access to resources, capital, innovations. So what does the sentence mean? Theoretical base kya hai? Why it happens? Okay. Now, what is the significance of this concept? Significance is that growth will not spread on its own. Growth by nature is uneven, discontinuous. So growth must be regulated. Okay? So, example hoga, you can talk about policies of encouraging district level growth centers. याद RP Mishra's model. We have to diversify the nature of the growth centers. We must disperse the growth centers. We must diversify the nature, not just manufacturing, have agriculture, have services. Diversify the nature, disperse the growth centers across a large area. And investment infrastructure based policies for backward area development. So आपका aspirational district program है, one district, one product का program है, encouraging footloose industries है, and so on. So 3 broad sections of your answer. What does the statement mean? Okay, so this was about the theoretical base. The second part is why does it happen with examples. The third is what does this mean? The planning kare, be aware of the fact that inequalities will creep in. Write another question. To what extent is the heartland theory influential in the foreign policies of the US and Russia? Establish some relationship between the predictions of the theory and current foreign policy relation. I'm not going to ask you to write on heartland theory. आप मुझे structure बताओ कि how will you break up your answer? This is the most critical part of any answer writing. You must have a bird's eye view of an answer. किसे शुरू करोगे? How will you end it? What to add? How to enrich it? देखो आपके आंसर में क्या क्या दिखना चाहिए? I should see Ukraine, Poland का reference, NATO's expansion to include Sweden, NATO's and Turkey का relationship क्या है? You can talk about SCO क्या कर रहा है? What is China under BRI doing? 4 question पूछा. None of you talked about the rise of the idea of Indo-Pacific. Okay, then we have I2, EU2 also. एक जापान, फिलीपींस, कोरिया, यूएस का भी अप्रोच है, एक क्वाड है. आप बिना ये सब टर्म्स यूज करे हुए, हाउ कैन यू राइट? यू आर गिविंग मी वेरी ब्रॉड हेड्स that doesn't tell me exactly आपके कंटेंट में क्या आएगा. It's like, you know, write about a football. आप हेडिंग दे रहे हो, what is football, what are the advantage, what are the disadvantage and conclusion. This is no heading. आप heading वैसे दो ना. Okay, so ball, so how many types of balls are there? Okay, why playing ball is a popular sports in India. What are the types of sports that include a cricket ball and tennis ball and so on. जब आप ऐसे themes लिखोगे ना, then I know कि अच्छा इसमें अंदर कुछ आ रहा है. What you should do is you should make a list of what are the current geopolitical issues emerging. It's very nice. SCO का बात होना चाहिए. Okay, you can talk about how in some ways the US has vacated one of its important dreamland element in Afghanistan. Okay, so हम discuss करेंगे. Okay, that heartland introduction. So don't write about heartland theory. You say the geopolitics. If you look at the introduction जो है आपका, I'll start with how the geopolitics of the 20th century, of the 21st century is contested between the heartland and the rimland theory. Okay, the two theories are two different interpretations of what is the advantageous location in the global geopolitics and why. अगर आप 21st century का conflict देखें, 20th century का देखें, it's a contest between that. Okay, कि rimland theory or heartland theory, and what is the advantageous location in geopolitics and why. Okay, and maybe draw a box and show what is heartland and show what is rimland. Okay, 2-3 points here of heartland and 2-3 points here of rimland. The box is done. The second one will be the changing Russian geopolitics. The first point, traditionally Russian has been a heartland theory concept. Okay, the control of Siberia, the control of the steppes land, north में the Arctic Ocean. तो Russia, the time of the Tsars, the time of the communist revolutions, okay, the times of Stalin, use some bit of history. Stalin, so all of this time Russian was more of a heartland power, and it successfully maintained its domination. It successfully maintained its domination through the world wars. The Trans-Siberian Railway, the agriculture steppe lands, okay, the vast resources, okay, of Russian lowlands. It was fundamentally, okay. Then, in recent times, there has been a change in Russia's approach in geopolitics. It seems to be appreciating the need for a coastline. तो 4 point बता दीजिए आप. Ukraine annexation or Crimea annexation, the control of Black Sea Fleet, Crimean annexation, control of Black Sea Fleet. That's one. Second is collaboration with Iran and India under INSTC. याद आ रहा है INSTC, International North-South Trade Corridor. Okay, Mumbai. Okay, we have Bandar Abbas. Okay, we have Azerbaijan, Moscow. Yes, ये पूरा line बना के दिखाएं आप. INSTC. Second example is Russia's collaboration with India. There's an element of Indian Ocean strategy. फिर Russia's efforts to acquire port of Sudan in Sudan. I hope you know this. Okay, so if you look at this, Russia अब क्या कर रहा है? Russia is trying to get the port of Sudan here in the Red Sea. Sudan का base बनाना चाह रहा है. It also has some presence in Djibouti. It has all-weather friend in India. It is cultivating its relationship with China. Okay, Russia's influence in the North Korea. North Korea was essentially pushing back Russia, trying to dominate Southeast Asia through occupying Vietnam. These are 5 examples where Russia का policy change हुआ है from heartland towards the rimland concept. And in Russia's rimland based strategy, okay, the 2 most important players are China and India. Okay, so China का heartland था. Predictions क्या है? Prediction is that this probably will become more and more assertive. Okay, China and Russia will consolidate in some ways. Now you can have an own idea that it looks like, okay, Russia wants to extend the rimland influence towards the Arctic Ocean. Pehle rimland was an arc of Indian Ocean. Now it's trying to influence or extend the rimland influence through the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean Sea Route is also called as NSR, the North Sea Route. The North Sea Route. Russia is done. Now come towards the US strategy. So US fundamentally was always rimland theory. Its NATO's expansion was in line with the rimland approach, not heartland. The US and the Anglo-American countries have dominated North Atlantic trade route, the Mediterranean trade route, the presence of its fleets, the Pacific Fleet, the Indian Ocean Fleet. Okay? US extending NATO status to Ukraine, the US extending NATO status for Sweden, possibly for Turkey eventually, is also not a heartland approach. Okay. Now, the most important development in recent times, next point, that validates US rimland approach is the concept of Indo-Pacific. The concept of Indo-Pacific, the concept of the strategic dialogue partners in Quad, and its I2U2 grouping, Israel, India, UAE, US grouping जो है, this validates, okay, its rimland. आप ऐड कर सकते हो, okay, that US domination in the rimland to contain heartland, however, was diluted once it vacated Afghanistan. ठीक है? तो देखो ये सारे पॉइंट्स को ना पैराग्राफ नहीं लिखना है, 1 2 3 4 लिख देना है. These are the 5 developments that look like rimland. These 5 developments looks like heartland and so on. Now he's asking us, tell us, okay, the predictions future में क्या होने वाला है? Okay, the current foreign policy. So few predictions for the future based on the current developments. Predictions. The first prediction is that the political contestation will not be either rimland or heartland dominance. It will be multilateral. It will be regional grouping based. It will not solely be based on oil, gas, resources. There will be technology dominance. The rise of China, next point, rise of China is an example where a country might try to dominate both heartland and rimland. China का जो BRI है, वो heartland वाला है. BRI, OBOR, okay. And China's maritime Silk Route looks like it is rimland. The same for India. Okay, India wants to, okay, the future में, India wants to play the twin role, okay, as the head of the Indian Ocean, okay, and at the same time also develop relationships with the heartland powers. India wants to dominate both the maritime domination along with developing collaborations with the land powers, Russia and China. China traditionally has been a land power. Now China is developing into a sea power also. China has acquired a base in Djibouti. आपके सब diagram बताना पड़ेगा, okay? Like you have this INST, you have got the Silk Route, okay, you have this maritime Silk Route, the string of pearls strategy. So, 2-3 diagram में दिखाना. So, prediction looks like the rimland concept probably will dominate for some decades. Will dominate because there's alignment of Japan, Philippines, Australia, ASEAN. These are consolidating. India, Middle East, consolidating under the Indo-Pacific strategy. It looks like the rimland, okay, might dominate the geopolitics. While Russia may remain confined, Russia may be isolated. अच्छा एक और point हम भूल गए बताना. Russia's interest in Syria is also rimland. Go back to previous discussions. कहां पर रशिया का rimland approach है? Russia in Syria, Russia in Port of Sudan, Russia and Djibouti, Russia with India, Russia partnering with China along the coast, Russia exploring the North Sea route, ये सब rimland वाले हैं. So add Syria वाला dimension also. So broad heads क्या हैं आपके? The geopolitics is contestation. Next, Russia traditionally has been heartland, but shifting towards rimland also. Third, US has always been a rimland, which is trying to consolidate. The fourth, it looks like it will be a hybrid thing. Okay, China is the new player. अब सिर्फ rimland और heartland वाला contest नहीं है अब. Okay, emerging powers want to consolidate both. In fact, ये चाइना में दिखता है and India में भी वही approach दिख रहा है. India has not done great in consolidating its heartland advantage vis-a-vis Russia. Okay, but effort is there with Russian friendship collaboration. Okay, so mental level pe these headings you have to develop, otherwise it will not work out. Okay, next one. So I'm done with the questions on models and theories. Now some question on rural-urban fringe and this urban, or I'm moving towards settlement geography now. Okay, question for rural-urban fringe and the relationship between urban and rural economy. क्या करो? Take this diagram, approximate diagram hai, the approximate borders of Delhi. This is Gurgaon, this is Rajasthan, this part is Faridabad, and this part is Noida. Somewhere here is your central Delhi, this is North Delhi, and this is River Yamuna. And this part is the Aravalli's range. Okay? And Delhi mein, this belt is one belt of industries. This belt is ek aur belt hai idhar. Okay. This is towards Chandigarh. This is towards Chandigarh. This is towards Meerut. Okay. So this is Agra, Rajasthan, Chandigarh, Meerut. Along the eastern part, this is the river Yamuna. Goes like this, almost border with UP yahan par banta hai. So we'll write down 4-5 points about Delhi. कैसे use करना, I'll tell you afterwards. I think urban problem, urban floods, ये सब काम आने वाला है. The facts about Delhi. Number one, Delhi is a low-lying area between Yamuna on one side and Aravalli's another side. The east-west expansion के लिए Delhi has very narrow limits. ज़्यादा limit नहीं है. On one side it is Yamuna, another side it is Aravalli's. Delhi does not have much scope for east-west expansion. That's one point. The second point, Delhi shows elements of a concentric zonation model with the CBD around central Delhi and Lutyens Delhi. Number two, Delhi has elements of sectoral model, which is expansion along the highways. Okay, and we have Delhi-Agra highway, Delhi-Jaipur highway, Delhi-Chandigarh, Delhi Sonipat, Panipat and Chandigarh highway. So this is one sector ऐसे develop हो रहा है. There's another sector here and ये भी एक sector है. So also is like a sector here. Delhi has this one. उसके बाद because of urban sprawl, Delhi also has elements of exploded city with leapfrogging settlements. Small pockets, okay, across Delhi have scattered. Okay. Next element is Delhi also has a rapidly expanding rural-urban fringe, and the character of the rural-urban fringe has undergone major changes. Okay? So what are the changes? Number one, the sector along Delhi-Faridabad has witnessed the expansion in manufacturing. So the RUF has elements of industrial landscape. यहाँ पर there are elements of industrial landscape. खासकर automobile industries plus light manufacturing industries. Okay, next, along the Delhi-Sonipat, Chandigarh, the RUF has elements of agriculture-based industries landscape. So rice mills, sugar mills, okay, more agriculture-based development. Then along Delhi-Jaipur, it's more of urbanization along with industries. And this is that mostly it is the high residential areas, the high class residential areas with modern urban city elements. Okay. Delhi, Gurgaon wala expansion mein, you also find the lot of urban resorts. They typically are urban type of land use, urban resorts. Okay, so large resorts, swimming pools, urban resorts, catering to the corporate population of the Delhi Gurgaon belt. The next, the fringe elements of Delhi Gurgaon has witnessed change in agriculture crops. So dairy farms, vegetables, flowers, dairy farm, vegetables, flowers, okay, and not, okay, food cereal crops in dominance, and not food cereal crops in dominance. Uske baad, the changes in the RUF includes the change in morphology of the suburban rural areas, in the suburban rural areas. So type of houses, pakka roads, okay, material used, they're not traditional anymore, while they still retain traditional cultural setups also. Next. Delhi Noida. This has been a very planned expansion of the RUF. Delhi Noida and Delhi Noida जो expressway है, this is one of the best examples of planned RUF expansion. इसमें कि industries भी हैं, there are residential suburbs, residential suburbs, along with the upcoming airport. Okay, so आप इसको diagram के साथ में बता देना. Now, quickly, right? Give us a heading: the urban expansion and change in character of the RUF. What are they? Number one is rapid expansion of, okay, communication systems. इसमें एक expressway आएगा, जिसमें metro rail आएगा, expressway, metro rails, okay, 4 or 8 lane highways. ये बहुत modern influence है. That's one. Okay. Second influence is planned expansions of the suburbs, and that's the consequence of rapid economic growth and the need to cater to a high paying capacity urban population. So now many of these are the IT professionals. The third is expansion of new construction methods, building designs and architecture. जिसमें कि you have taller buildings, American style sectoral models of planning, and the American influence visible in malls. ठीक है, आप example में वही गुड़गांव बताना, वही नोएडा बताना. Okay, show that, okay, metro lines wherever you can. So you have a metro line along Gurgaon. Okay, you have a metro line along Noida also. Okay, use another pencil. So this is a metro line. Show this. It's a metro line like this. There is a metro line along Noida going towards this. Okay, यहाँ पर you also have a major expressway, which is the, okay, Delhi Noida Agra expressway. It goes and ultimately merges with this. Okay, so these elements, ये नए elements हैं of rural urban fringe. Okay, but some of the common elements that still remain, the new elements हो गए. Some of the common elements that still remain are the unplanned expansions, urban sprawls, lack of urban amenities beyond the planned municipal limits. ठीक है? Now look at the question, please. Okay, अब इसी को आप समझा के लिखना है. How? Write the question, please. How the rural urban fringe in the developed market economies, how the rural urban fringe in the developed market economies have undergone a major process of restructuring in recent times. लिखेंगे जो traditional expansion होते थे, they used to be urban sprawl. The traditional ones, the expansions were much more slower. And the traditional, लिखो write down, इसी के अंडर में, okay, the traditional and the expansion in the less developed countries, the RUF transition was slower. The RUF was more the consequence of urban sprawl. There was a longer transition time in shift from the rural traditional society to urban society. And the RUF elements included largely extensive land uses, large factories, large airports, okay, large landfills, dumping grounds. So they were mostly extensive land uses. ये आपका था traditional. What has happened in modern times? In the modern times, ये transition बहुत fast हो रहा है. How has it changed? The modern time, the transition of the RUF is much more faster. So the reason है rapid communication, much more faster. The transition is more planned. For example होगा Noida, Greater Noida, more planned expansions हैं. Kolkata में Salt Lake City is planned expansion. Navi Mumbai is planned expansion. For Lucknow is planned expansion. Okay, so हर city का एक planned part. They are more planned in recent times. Third is the land uses are not always extensive. High rise are coming up faster, not always extensive land uses. पहले ज़्यादा थे extensive, today it are not as extensive. Higher land rentals, taller buildings, and the gentrification of the RUF, the type of people who live there, the gentrification of the RUF is faster. Gentrification मतलब होता है the local populations replaced by the local population, जो rural population है, they are replaced by urban elite, replaced by urban elite. It's called as gentrification. यही चीज को आपको with example बताना पड़ेगा. Like in Delhi's case, this is rapid gentrification happening here, okay, along Gurgaon. A rapid gentrification along Noida हो रहा है. Okay, the traditional RUF probably was along Faridabad. The tradition was probably along the Delhi Chandigarh part. यहाँ पर आपको ज़्यादा agriculture दिखाई देगा. This part, it has been very, very rapid. And you can see a metro line here. You can see an expressway here. You can see a metro line here. Okay, so in Delhi's case, compare with Gurgaon, compare with Noida, the new elements of RUF restructuring. तो आपको मैंने एक टाइप का बनाकर दे दिया है. Okay, use Delhi's diagram examples. And nice if you can use some other city. I think I have drawn the diagram for Bangalore also, right? आप वो भी use करना. Bangalore, Mysore, Bangalore, Hosur, Bangalore, Hebbal. Okay. So see if you can use that sketch also if you can. That's one question. एक और question लिखो आप. With the changing nature of both. Next question. With the changing nature of both rurality and urbanity, there has developed a functional overlap between the two. That what we call as rural, that is changing, and what we call as urban, that is changing, because of which the overlap has become all the more stronger. So rural areas mein urban features are more common, and in urban areas, the rural features are more common. Okay? So I'm saying, there is changing rurality and there is changing urbanity. Okay. So what was the traditional rural kya tha, urban kya tha? This was only agriculture. Okay. This was your cultural and traditional centers. Lack of amenities tha. They were more closed economies. They were more sustained economies. The traditional rurality was agriculture economy. The population was cultural and traditional. These type of societies, they were more closed societies, more self-sustaining economies. Okay, agriculture dominates. And the construction was also very local constructions. Okay, no planning. Isme elements of ethnic identities hota tha. Okay, occupation based hai, lack of amenities are there. Now the urban jo traditional tha, they were manufacturing, they were services. Okay, they were not self-sufficient. It was more modern machines. It was more cosmopolitan populations. Okay, it had more diversity. A traditional. Now come to the changing of jo hai modern changing jo hai. In modern changing, yeah, urban areas mein, we're trying to promote the concept of sustainability. We're trying to promote the concept of self-sufficiency. Green buildings, rainwater harvesting, urban forests. Okay, and urban areas mein, we're trying to promote the idea of urban cultural landscapes, a sustainable infrastructure made of local material. So the urbanity is changing. It is not like this. It is changing. So what we're talking about, watershed management, smart city concepts. Like, एक बहुत बड़ा change इसके इसमें बीच में है. In the new ones, you also have the digital technology dominance. Okay. Now come to the changing rural. The rural areas are now having better infrastructure. They have manufacturing units, manufacturing. You have lot of urban functions, in particular in the rural urban fringe. Okay. There is digital technologies, more exposure. So no longer traditional like the older rural areas. ये urban areas में there are many urban functions. जैसे कि I said airports, light manufacturing, warehousing, urban resorts. And that's because the urban areas are now expanding very fast. Okay. This is why there is now an overlap. Please do not look at straight answers on these topics. आपको मैंने structure दे दिया and example आप दिल्ली का ही लिखना है. The same diagram, give examples from Delhi. In Delhi, the whole development of Yamuna front की बात हो रही है. And one element of unplannedness यहाँ पर भी है. Lot of unauthorized colonies. ये add कर सकते in fact. The changing urbanity has increasing rural to urban migration. A lot of rural population are in urban areas. That's why you cannot differentiate much. Okay, urban and rural अलग नहीं कर सकते ज़्यादा. There's no overlap. Okay, the urban populations are increasingly going and settling in the rural areas. Okay, there's gentrification happening. And the rural people are settling in the urban areas because of migration. So culture blur hai, infrastructure has got blurred. So your answer का structure कैसे होगा? Okay. The elements of traditional, urban and rural landscape. So 2-3 lines here. एक box बना देना. Traditional, urban, traditional, rural. Second, changing urban landscapes. So the urbanity is changing. Then changing rural landscapes. The rurality is changing. And finally, therefore an overlap. And reason is, I said, rapid communication, digital technologies, okay, faster economic expansion, and even government policies. They acquire rural areas much faster. इसी का एक और version है लिखो question. Another one is how rural settlements have been changing under urban pressure in the developing countries. Same चीज हम दोबारा पूछ रहे हैं. An example वही Delhi, the same diagrams and tell us the elements. So I think this should answer at least one question of your examination. Diagram, RUF, changing models, land use change, ये सब मिला देना. Okay, with example, okay, and places, this should become one answer. Fine.